Today we are here at Streeter Point on the monument opened on the 6th of September 1988 to commemorate the 400th anniversary of one of the worst tragedies of the 16th century, the ill fate of the Spanish Armada.
In May of 1588, Prince Philip II of Spain sent an invasion force on a mission to land in England and to overthrow Queen Elizabeth I. His goal was to reinstate Catholicism in England, to end support for the Dutch Republic and prevent attacks by English and Dutch privateers against the Spanish interests in the Americas. Prince Philip gave command of the Armada to the Duke of Medina Sidonia, with orders to set sail from Lisbon up through the English Channel, where they were to link up with the Duke of Parma in Flanders and combine their strength. This done, the Armada was to then escort the invasion force to land in England. The English, expecting the invading Spanish fleet, first sighted them on July 29th off Lizard in Cornwall. Knowing the English fleet was trapped in Plymouth Harbour by the incoming tide, the Duke of Medina Sidonia requested permission to attack them, but was denied this opportunity to seize the initiative by Prince Philip. As the tide turned, 55 English ships set out to confront the Armada from Plymouth Harbour under the command of Lord Howard of Effingham, Sir Francis Drake as Vice Admiral, and with Sir John Hawkins as Rear Admiral. Faster and more manoeuvrable than the larger Spanish galleons, the English were able to attack the Armada, harrying them as they sailed up the English Channel. Despite this, the Armada reached Calais largely intact, but then, while waiting communication from Parma, the Armada was attacked that night by English fireships and so were forced to scatter. Following its defeat at the Naval Battle of Gravelines, the Armada had then attempted to return home through the North Atlantic when it was driven from its course towards the west coast of Ireland by the sudden onset of a savage storm. This alarmed the government of Queen Elizabeth sitting in Dublin, the prospect of a Spanish landing in any strength there, so prescribed harsh measures for any Spanish invaders as well as any Irish who have been found to have assisted them. After the Armada's second engagement with the British Navy, as they were making their escape around Ireland, 3 ships became separated from the Armada and anchored approximately 2 kilometres off Streeter. But as they were waiting here, a fresh storm front brewed up and pushed the ships ashore, smashing them against the unforgiving rocks. Of the over 1,300 souls manning the ships, less than 300 of them made it ashore, where even there they were not safe. Among them was Captain Francisco de Cuellar, who had been aboard a ship named the Levita, awaiting execution for alleged disobedience. He later wrote letters in which he detailed his adventures while traversing the northwest corner of our island, often highlighting the great political situations which manifested in the endless instabilities in the region. These letters are still considered some of the best contemporary accounts of West Coast Ireland during the Elizabethan era. These structures, spotted throughout the wild northwest, help set the scene for what de Cuellar saw on his adventures here. Structures like these ring forts or the monastic site at Stad, near the defended village of Grange.
Hello and welcome everybody. Today we are here at the ruined remains of Stad Abbey in the parish of Ahamnish in North County Sligo. This is a rich, peaty pastoral land by a teeming Atlantic coast which can boast plenty of evidence to indicate the importance of this region to those who populate it, stretching back millennia.
This can be seen by the abundance of megalithic structures built in the area, which probably started during the Neolithic more than 6,000 years ago. Structures such as the popular court tomb at Creevy Keel or the alleged grave of Queen Maeve, the cairn atop of Knocknarea, which is said to be the largest of its type anywhere in Ireland. Now, keep in mind that these megalithic structures would have required huge populations to support the work with labour, the various raw materials, as well as keeping up with everyday activities such as preparing foodstuffs. This is not to forget the planning and political organisation needed to bring these elements together to complete these projects, suggesting large, powerful social systems lasting for long periods of time, and that would have connected the people here together.
Right here, directly below us, under these cobbles, hides a peat layer with an over 4,000-year-old concealed past. Occasionally, intense waves hitting the shoreline here fall back the cobbles to reveal the peat layer. A peat layer similar to the one covering the KG field, and like which was formed during the Bronze Age.
In 2017, an archaeological investigation here found in situ worked wooden stakes of willow, alder and hazel that, to have been preserved, must have been driven into the freshwater fenland here during the early Bronze Age, and which would later become the bog in this area.
Now these wooden stakes could have either been part of trackway through the freshwater swamp to allow access to the natural harbour here by the coastline, or they could have been part of a platform used for the hunting of wild fish and birds.
Just another few short kilometres along the coast from Stad is the promontory fort of Knocklane, which may have been in temporary use as early as the late Iron Age and used sporadically throughout the entire medieval into the post-medieval period during times of unrest. It was into this strange and sometimes brutal world that Captain de Cuellar found himself lost and looking for sanctuary. Another interesting point about the area around North County Sligo is it has perhaps one of the strongest concentrations of ring forts anywhere on the island, indicating potentially high population levels mixed with endemic social upheavals. Ring forts were built by farmers, rich and not so rich, to help protect their family and what little livestock they may have had.
It was into this late medieval landscape that the stone church here was built in around the 14th century. It was said to have been built to replace an earlier wooden church, although no archaeological evidence has ever been unearthed to collaborate with this story.
Oral tradition says that St. Millash, who is sometimes associated with St. Columkill, came from around Killala Bay on the Sligo-Mayo border and was the one who first set up an ecclesiastic site here in about the 5th or 6th century. This was supposedly done to act as a station house for the priests, pilgrims and monks, giving them a place to stay a few days while waiting for a boat using the natural harbour there to bring them out to the island of Inishmurray, roughly 7 kilometres offshore, where St. Millash had established a monastic settlement not dissimilar to those seen on the Skelligs.
Here is what remains of the kiln, where limestone mixed with seashells was burnt in alternating layers of coal to produce the lime needed for the mortar to both make and maintain the church. Here behind me we see a midden, the remains of a rubbish pile thrown out by kitchens and household. While just refuse to the people of the day, these are often gold mines of information to archaeologists, giving great insight to the daily activity of the people here, from their diet, clothing, or any other number of household daily activities.
This here is a digital reconstruction of what the church may have looked like about the time Captain Francisco de Cuellar sought refuge here, after his harrowing ordeal of washing ashore at Streedja Point Strand. Following his encounters with some of the indigenous folk, many of which were cordial and helpful, while others were decidedly not, de Cuellar was given a blanket and pointed the right direction. On his arrival here, he hoped to find food and shelter, but instead was met with an awful and grisly sight, which he later wrote about.
At the dawn of the day, I began to walk, little by little, searching for a monastery of monks, that I might repair to it as best I could, to which I arrived at with much trouble and toil, and found it deserted, and the church and images of the saints burned and completely ruined, and 12 Spaniards hanging within the church by the act of the English Lutherans, who went about searching for us, to make an end of us all, who had escaped from the perils of the sea.
The Lutherans de Cuellar writes about here were probably members of the garrison from the castle only a few kilometres east overlooking the village of Grange. Soldiers that had been ordered to sally out and kill whatever Spanish they found, then plunder what they could. Horrified by what he had seen, de Cuellar fled from the destruction at Stad into a nearby thick woodland in the hope of acquiring both food and shelter. Coming to no avail, Francisco left this area and went looking for help.
Please join us in the next episode, where we explore some of the other events
as well as historical and archaeological sites visited by Captain de Cuellar on the course of his journey home.